Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ginger Binger podcast. It's been a long time. This is the first podcast of 2019, and wow, do I have a lot to talk about this week. So, where I've been these past, I feel like before Christmas, I've been on a bit of a hiatus. I wish I could tell you I was going on this self-reflecting journey and becoming a better person. No. I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2. And I just finished it the other day, so I'm going to warn everybody right now, if you're not looking to hear any Red Dead 2 spoilers or you haven't beat the game, listen, finish it and then come back to this, because this is going to be heavy spoilers. So I got to give you guys a little backstory on the game. So I had probably made it about 70% through the story when my girlfriend, who was playing on her own file, decided to save over mine. She claims it was an accident, but I don't believe in accidents. So I probably, after that happened, I had to take a couple weeks off of playing Red Dead just to get myself in the zone again. Because that is not just a game, it's an experience. It is a hardcore time consumer. And, oh, was it worth every second of it. Even just playing it through again, the same missions, it was still, there were still new things to be found. But I do have to say, after playing it and finishing it, I don't know if I'll ever be able to play the story of Red Dead Redemption 2 again, because it is so long and it just consumes you. Like one of those big games like Skyrim, but to me, like a game like Skyrim doesn't have the hook of a main character and a story and a development that Red Dead does. It's almost like I'll say it, to me, it kind of feels like the Godfather of games. As what Godfather is to movies is what Red Dead is to video games. Now, I don't know if anybody would agree with that or not. I know a lot of people really enjoy it, but for me to give it that praise, but that's how I feel. And it is, wow, just wow is how you want to describe it. The level of detail and the level of interactiveness that the world has with you. You can talk to every character, and each one has a response from range from howdy to get the fuck out of my face to, full out on conversations you can have with these people. But let's dive right into the story, because Red Dead, from a writer's point of view, from a gamer's point of view, from anyone who enjoys great quality entertainment, is a superb story with extremely well-developed characters. And going into this game, I really had no interest in Arthur Morgan. They didn't tell you too much about him in the trailers. He just kind of seemed like this rugged, tough outlaw. And I was really going in hoping to see a lot of John, Dutch, Bill, Javier, all these people before they were in the gang. And Arthur stole the show. Well, him and Dutch stole the show. Arthur, I thought it was going to be almost impossible for them to top John Marston as a lead character. And they did. To my surprise, they not only passed John Marston, they went leaps and bounds, in my opinion. Because I liked John Marston a lot in Red Dead, and I felt really terrible when I seen him die. But I was heartbroken when Arthur caught tuberculosis. It really, really hurt me. And to see his change after that, and how he handles himself, and how he's going on his last few days of life on this earth, and how he's trying to change who he is and what he'll be remembered for. That's how I played it. I know some people can just say fuck it and just be a total asshole, but that to me is not the ending I got, and that's the ending I go with. So the ending I got, just to go out there, I got the good ending with High Honor, where Arthur dies on the mountaintop looking over the sunrise. I decided to check out the other endings, and the other endings just pissed me off so bad, where Micah shoots him in the head and stabs him to death. And I think everybody can say, fuck Micah Bell. He is one of those characters that from the beginning, I didn't trust him. I expected him to be the rat. And then you think Molly's the rat, and then they do the double swerve where it actually is Micah the whole time. And I was like, oh my God, I was right. But Micah is one of those characters without, as despicable and cruddy of a person he is, he's so much fun to watch and listen to, though. He almost enjoys reveling in how much of a turd he is. He was one of those characters that just epitomized an antagonist, where everything you did and everything he did just were always at odds. There was nothing anybody could agree with. Hell, even the fight where Sean gets his head blown off, even him and Arthur are arguing then and antagonizing each other. There was never a moment where these guys were ever on the same page. But he was a really good antagonist where you never was on his side ever. I honestly thought after Molly was thought to be the rat that you were going to have a better relationship with Micah, or Micah was going to do something to, help Arthur or something along those lines. Like, not redeem him, but show that he's not just the asshole that everybody's scumbag that he thinks he is. Nope, they double down on it. They're like, no, he's a rat, and, he'll kill everybody. All that shit. And he was just so mesmerizing. A lot of these characters were really great in this game. Like, you don't really realize how much you love the people in the gang until they start dying. Like, the moment Sean, that I was just talking about, gets shot in the head out of nowhere, I remember audibly just yelling, Sean, at the top of my lungs. My girlfriend, who was on her phone at the time, she was just watching me play, but she was further behind in the story. She just looks up and seen his head get blown off, and she ran into the bedroom because she's like, I don't want to see any spoilers. It was just so brilliant. Charles Smith. Charles is my man. I honestly thought that he was just going to be kind of like a caricature of like a stoic native American who uses a bow and a tomahawk, and he uses all the buffalo, all the aspects of him, and he didn't really have much more. I thought Charles was very well developed. He cared for the people of I can't remember the name of the tribe in the game, but he also cared about the members of the gang. He was split between two worlds, almost like how his heritage is split. He's half African and half native. So that was really interesting. Lenny, when Lenny got shot, it broke my heart because I thought I fucked up. Because when Lenny got shot, I thought, I could draw my gun and shoot them, but I didn't get the chance because Lenny's the only gang member who doesn't get killed in a cutscene. And which is so disappointing because Lenny was such, he deserved a cutscene death, goddammit. But yeah, I thought I couldn't save him. Apparently, he dies regardless, which is so, heartbreaking. Kieran, I don't know how too many other people felt about Kieran, but I was so, broken up when he died. When he comes back and you just see his head cut off and his eyes gouged out, he had a very painful death. And I'm like, oh, man, he's just a kid. Leave him be. I did feel very bad for Kieran because I was starting to like him. I was thinking, okay, he's going to go and, do something really good for the gang where he's going to sacrifice himself or something. Man, I was wrong on that one. Who is it? Is it Karen? I hate that they have a Kieran and a Karen in the gang. It's just name them something different. But I think Karen is still left up to a mystery. We don't know what the hell happens to her. She kind of just disappears before you get to Beaver Creek, I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was there when you get back from Guarma. Is it Guarma or Guam or whatever the hell? She's there, and then you don't see her when you get to Beaver Creek. I think Mary Beth explains that she probably drank herself to death. You don't see her. But I find it weird that nobody else asks what happened to her. But yet again, I guess it kind of fits with the story. People coming in and out all the time. You don't know what's going to happen to all these people. And speaking of it, I didn't realize what happened with Reverend because I got the honorable ending. So I was talking with a nun. Apparently, if you get if you're more dishonorable, you're talking to Reverend as he leaves. But I feel like you should get a bit of a closure if you have the high honor ending with Reverend, that he's turned his life around, which is really good, because Reverend was one of the most annoying characters in the game, because whenever I'd be walking around camping, he'd come over, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here, I don't want to talk to you. These members of the gang that you just grow to love and just do the side missions with, hell, they really gave a lot of depth to Javier. I mean, that's why I was so kind of shocked, even though I knew he wasn't going to be on John's and Arthur's side, when he turned and sided with Dutch. It just seemed like he was a little more of like a lone wolf, could have seen what was going on. I understand why Bill easily led, really stupid, would side with Dutch. But I do remember Javier saying something that Dutch saved his life when they were stealing chickens. He'll never go back to Mexico, so Dutch is his family now. I totally get that. Who else in the gang? I'm just trying to remember all the people that I really care. Sadie Adler. How do you forget about Sadie? Sadie goes through one of the best arcs in the game, where she first is found to be like this damsel in distress. Her husband gets murdered, her house is burnt down, and she turns out to be this badass with a bloodlust that almost becomes too much, because you're at points where you're like, Sadie, just let it go. And she's got to go right after him. She's got to go after all those O'Driscolls. And I can appreciate that. And her character, I love her voice actress. It is very, very... It reminds me of Jennifer Jason Leigh in The Hateful Eight, with just the little, like, the dialect that she chooses, I guess is the right word. The little, like, drawl she gives it. It's really good. And then we get to John Marston. John Marston actually was... To me, they went an interesting route with it, because I had a theory before the game came out. I'm like, what if John was like Micah? Like, that was the idea. John was the asshole character that nobody liked. That's why they left him for dead. And then that would give a whole new, like, spin on Red Dead 1. John was the miserable bastard that they all couldn't stand. That's why they left him. They went a different route. John's just a deadbeat dad who wants nothing to do with his son until he gets kidnapped. Then he comes around and starts trying to be a father and get out of the gang, but he's feeling, conflicted between these two worlds, between his family and his gang family, his loyalty to Dutch, and Arthur almost being that big brother figure where he's like, listen, I'm already too far gone, you got to get out of here with your kid. And John's epilogue is really interesting, where when he goes to confront Micah, that's the triggering event that gets the detectives and Agent Ross to find out where John's hiding. And it's really heartbreaking, too. The epilogue, in my opinion, was a little too long. I think you could have cut out the whole going to the new person's farm at the beginning. That just felt like it was 2 hours too long. But I did enjoy meeting up with... Charles and Sadie. When we were going up the mountain to fight Micah, I was so worried for those two. I was having, like, panic attacks, because they're both not in Red Dead 1. I'm thinking, oh, God. And then Charles got shot off the horse. I'm thinking, oh, my God. But he was just injured. Thank God. Sadie got stabbed. I thought that was the end of her, and she survived. If I'm going to be nitpicky, I think it would have had a little bit more of a weight to it for the character of John too, that this vengeance did cost him, if either or both of those two didn't make it out. But that's just me. I'm glad that they did, because I wanted those two to live so bad. They were the coolest ones. And then we get, as I was talking about, Arthur Morgan wanting to change everything he was, and I wasn't a fan of Arthur's voice acting at first. I'm like, he kind of sounds like an NPC, but then it grows on you. And you almost, I don't know about you guys, but I started talking everything. Arthur Morgan, going up to, an animal. Good boy. Hello, boy. All that stuff. And every time I touch my girlfriend on the head, I'd be like, you all right, girl. But no, his character, usually I find, in my opinion, the main character in video games is usually the least interesting to me. Arthur just had me by the hook. He was this enforcer in the Dutch Vanderlyn gang who had bit of a moral code. He, I mean, it all depends on how the player did it, but I would never steal from the blind. I'd help people out. I'd break criminals out of jail. I don't know how that's not dishonorable, but you're an outlaw. I'd always do the right thing. I did, this is just me. I think I'm in a minority because I've talked to some of my friends about this. The loan sharking didn't make me feel dirty like it made my other friends feel dirty, like they're taking money from the poor. I'm like, you're an outlaw. Why is this? You're murdering people, but taking money from these people is the worst. That was just me. I totally get from a character perspective, but from a logical perspective. And I'm not saying go out and take money from people or murder people, obviously. Got to put that out there. It was really, Oh, and I got to go back. I watched a clip of the moment where Arthur got tuberculosis because I thought he got it when he was down south. I'm like, oh, the weather did that. He got it from someone down there. He gets it from one of the guys he goes right off the bat to collect money for. Because I remember that cough starting early on in the game. I'm like, oh, he sounds sick, or, just constantly... I'm sorry for people listening. I guess you all know what a cough sounds like. But I was like thinking, I'm like, that cough's got to come back because it's too often for that to happen. Like, when you have a character cough in a game, I've heard it sometimes just like randomly, but this was like after like a couple of missions, like every other mission was a cough. And then it paid off. Oh, and let me go back to how my girlfriend ruined Red Dead for me again. So I was riding into Saint Denis, and this was before I found out he had tuberculosis. My girlfriend looks at the screen, and you know how your core, like your health core, it does like a skull when he gets the tuberculosis. And she goes, you get to the part where Arthur's dying. I was literally riding into Saint Denis. It would have been 2 seconds more, and I would have found that out. But she ruined it for me again. The world did not want me to play Red Dead Redemption, it feels like, because even then, after my girlfriend saving over my file, telling me Arthur's dying of tuberculosis, I was thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? And then I was scrolling through YouTube and I made sure not to, search up anything Red Dead wise. I didn't want to know. And then the first thing was, I don't know, Eagle Flies reacts to Arthur's painful death, or whatever the hell the title was. I'm just like, oh my god, I hate everybody. So that was kind of, my tragic experience with Red Dead 2. Okay, where was Arthur Morgan? Such a great character. And the pièce de résistance, Dutch van der Linde. And Dutch van der Linde is one of the greatest characters in a video game, period. His arc from this charismatic leader who is manipulative right off the bat, okay? If you don't believe that, go back to the very first, section where they're in the mountains and listen to Dutch say, you have to stick with me, be with me, and he's still like this cult leader. I gotta take a drink. He's still this egotistical leader. And just to see his divulge into insanity, I guess is the word, it's really captivating. And I think Dutch could have been, not saved, but if Hosea didn't die, Dutch would have still had someone talking to his ear to avoid Micah. Because Micah was the real reason Dutch, started going a little nuts. Because Micah was telling everything Dutch needed to hear. Micah was manipulating Dutch the whole time, and Dutch was too egotistical and too afraid to admit it. That's why when he sided with Micah over Arthur, I was like, you son of a bitch. Because going back to the first Red Dead, I didn't know too much about Dutch. I didn't care. I was going after Bill the whole game, and then when we captured Bill, they're like, yeah, I gotta come back here and find Dutch. I'm like, who the fuck's this Dutch guy? Apparently, they've been talking about him so much in the game that I just didn't know who he was, though I wasn't paying attention. I was 16 years old. So when you go back, I'm like, oh, this is a guy. And I was expecting him to have a little more, do a little more, interaction with the player where there's a betrayal or he kills somebody that they like. That didn't happen in that game. In this game, Dutch fucks everybody. The moment you're on the mountain with Micah and you're crawling for your gun, I'm sitting there crawling. I'm like, don't you dare step in the frame, Dutch. And he steps on the gun. I'm like, no! Just such a charismatic and vile person. But here's the thing, the scariest thing to me. I relate to Dutch in certain situations. I don't condone his actions, but I totally get it because I feel I'm a little egotistical too, where when Dutch was doing certain things, I'm like, yeah, I totally get why you would do that. I totally get why you want people to work with you and why Micah is so appealing because he's the yes man. And that he doesn't like the dissent when John and Arthur start questioning him and he gets annoyed and he shuts the world out. Although there was one moment when Dutch kills that old lady in the tunnels in Guarma. And Arthur's like, why'd you do that? And he's like, she was going to betray us. And I'm sitting there going, well, she started getting loud and she seemed like she started calling for guards. I'm like, well, I don't blame Dutch for doing that at all. That was either them or her, and he chose her to die. That's just me. One of my favorite lines, actually, in the game, just going back to Dutch killing people, is when he feeds Angelo Bronte to the gators, and John Marston goes, where does it say in your book about feeding him to gators? I really was hoping Dutch would just go, it's in the last chapter, or something like that, something stupid. It's in there, you just gotta look for it, boy. His character arc is just so strong, and you can easily see it happening, and you can't do anything about it. Like, there were some moments that's like, just punch Micah or just punch Dutch or something. Hell, if you would have just left Micah in the jail in Strawberry at the very beginning, this whole thing could have been avoided. Hell, even this game had some very fun missions. The one where you're chasing after Lenny, where you're both drunk. Nothing really happens, but it's hilarious. The Lenny chasing him back and seeing like these images of like Lenny fucking himself when it's like two, like a hooker and like a gold miner. Oh, it was just such a fantastic experience. The details, everything, and now that you can go down to, in the epilogue, go down into like Blackwater and New Austin. Those are really cool to see that before and after too. And I've been playing a little bit of Red Dead Online. You meet Sean again, and there was a funny line where Sean goes, I don't like surprises, and the top comment in YouTube was like, you're going to get a real big one here soon, Sean, so you better get used to it. It was such a great experience. And even the internet culture that took the memes out of it, like Dutch Planderlin and Tahiti and all that stuff. Like, even to a point where I was catching on, where I'm just like, Jesus, Dutch, you keep saying I have a plan and I want to go to Tahiti so goddamn much. It was a great game, and honestly one of the best games I've ever played in my life. And I'm afraid that I'll never be able to go back to it. But if I ever have a child one day, this is what I'll show them. And now, you know what? I don't know if I want to show them Red Dead 2 first or Red Dead 1. The way I saw it, because Red Dead 2 kind of suffers from the prequel problem, where it's when you think John falls off the train and dies and Dutch is like, he's dead. We as the player, if we played Red Dead 1, we know he's not. So that kind of, takes you out of the moment just a little bit, because you as the player know otherwise, versus the characters. Oh, it was such a great game, but now I put my cowboy boots off, Jesus Christ, I can't speak today. And I've put, got my Leviathan axe in my hand, and I've been playing some God of War. And going back to how Red Dead made me talk like Arthur Morgan, God of War makes me keep calling my girlfriend, boy, get over here. That's my best Kratos impression. And I remember I played a little bit of the original God of War leading up to this. I didn't like them one bit, the button mashing, just not for me. But this one, I like the explorations, kind of like Naughty Dog, Uncharted, Last of Us style. And it's interesting, the character development. I know a few people aren't too big a fan of that because it's more like a walking journey than a game. But I enjoy the hell out of that. And the character development is really fun, like listening to Kratos try to tell the story of the rabbit and the hare with absolutely there's no fun. He's all about discipline and war and pain, and he's no fun Kratos. And I'm really interested because this is Norse mythology. I know Greek mythology a lot more than I know Norse, so I'm just sitting there oh, please tell me. I'm only probably about halfway through. I'm like, Thor and Kratos, they gotta go at it, the Leviathan axe versus Thor's hammer. It'll be great. Yeah, so that's what I've kind of been playing recently. I've got Detroit Becoming Human on my list. I've got that downloaded. I just got to finish this. This is one thing I'm trying to do with my life, is I start 85 different things and I never get around to finishing any of them. What I am trying to do is start one thing and finish it and just kind of go through it like that. That's why, I haven't finished God of War, because I've been playing Red Dead this whole time. So once God of War is done, it'll be Detroit Becoming Human, and then who knows what's next. That's what I'm playing for game-wise, but I've gotten into something else that... Sorry. Really dry. I've gotten into something else that is very... not new to me, but something I'm actually starting to enjoy, and that's comics. And more graphic novels. I don't like comic books where it's got 4 pages in it. But graphic novels, I've been reading, again, starting something and finishing it. I've been reading Nightfall. I'm on volume 2 of 3, so I'm really, enjoying the Batman comics. I got one the other day called The War of Jokes and Riddles, so I've heard that's a really instant classic, so I've got to check that out. And I've been reading Watchmen as well, because I'm working on this superhero project that, if it ever gets made or developed, it'll be years down the line. But this is just me coming up with molding the idea, and I wanted to read Watchmen, especially because I heard they're doing an HBO show of it. And I've seen the movie, and the movie is in my opinion. But the graphic novel, I'm only probably about halfway through at this point. Excuse me. And it is already so much better than the movie. And I'm not one person to usually say, the books are better than the movies. Man, they'll always be better. Because they're two different mediums, okay? There are certain things you have to show in a movie, and there's certain things you can put in a book that are a lot easier. But I really enjoy, the detail, and even the chapters of, the original Night Owls, Hollis Masons, Under the Cloak, or whatever it's called, Under the Mask. Giving you the history of the world, that really works. It's really good. And how all of these characters still they're not good people. You can argue that maybe the Night Owl is. I wouldn't even say he's a good person. He's not bad by comparison. But to me, he's also the most boring character. Two of my favorite characters in Watchmen are Rorschach. I think that's almost everybody. And the comedian. The comedian, to me, is the scummiest person there, but I have a fixation with him. Every time he's on, I just can't, I want to hear more about him. Hell, I found Dr. Manhattan in the movie so dull and boring. But in the graphic novel, getting his inner thoughts of how he perceives time is way more interesting. It took me a second to understand it, but when it clicks in, it's very interesting that he's seeing both the past and the future simultaneously, and actually seeing how that works is a lot cooler than the way I perceive time is blah, 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 than him just saying it. They actually show it to you and use dedicate a whole chapter to it when he's on Mars, and that's the last part I'm on. And it's really getting good. I'm not, when I get to the section where it was the guy at the newsstand with the kid reading the comic, I was a little more rushing through. Okay, let's get through this. But listening to it, I'm knowing the ending of Watchmen, you're oh, okay, I see. This is kind of foreshadowing. It's, go away, kitty. I know you want to be here, but I can't have you here during the podcast. Nope, bad kitty, bad. It's I'm just learning more about comics all the time. Oh, hi, kitty, I guess you are here. Just learning more and more about comics in general. I watched a list today from Watch Mojo, and just about comics that you should read that you probably haven't. Or what was it? No, it was top 10 comics that should either get a TV or a movie deal. And the ones they told, I was like, oh, this sounds really cool. Like these, like, I've heard of the Fables, because I played Wolf Among Us. I want to read more of those. What is it, like 100 Bullets is one of them? And there's like American Vampire, which sounds so fucking cool. So I'm really starting to get more into like graphic novels and reading. And like I've read for a long time. Like, let me rephrase that. I've started reading in my adult life a lot more than I did when I was a teenager and a kid. And I'm really enjoying it more. Now I'm going more back to comics for two reasons. One, they're enjoyable. And two, it teaches me a little bit more about like storyboarding, how to tell your words in a single, like a frame. And also showing how to convey not only movement, but, okay, because when I used to draw storyboards, I would first off draw them very shittily. But I would also have them shot, reverse shot, and all that shit. And, you know, anytime a character would move, I'd do a new board. I'm like, well, why not just have, you know, the camera move and then the character and just do that all in, like, the one frame? And maybe I'm not explaining this right. When I would look at a storyboard, I'd go, okay, this is the shot that has to happen here, blah, 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 and I wouldn't account for movement or camera movement or anything like that from a director's point of view or a cameraman. So I really started, like, reading. I'm like, well, this is what I would do in this frame right here. I would push in, I'd pull out, I'd almost do, like, a pan 360, you know, whatever. It's just teaching me a lot more. And when I get caught reading comics by people, sometimes they're like, oh, what are you reading, kids stuff? I'm like, hey, man, looks can be deceiving right here. If you're judging me based on this, you're pretty ignorant. But thankfully, that doesn't happen too often. But yeah, comics, I'm getting really, you know, into those. They're really fun. You know, as I was saying, they're not just kid stuff. They're a great form of art. Right. And I guess this is the last thing on my list, so we'll probably be wrapping up here soon. I gotta go to work. Got a promotion, by the way. Woo. And that's the Batman Arkham 2019. I've just been hearing about this, you know, little murmurs on the internet that they're gonna reveal something soon. Maybe at E3, maybe not. They're gonna drop a trailer at Easter. I don't know. I'm curious how they're gonna do it, because I've enjoyed all the Arkham games. Arkham Origins was one I wasn't too big on at first, but it grows on me. To me, just harp on Arkham Origins for a second. Arkham Origins has the best log line, in my opinion, for the Arkham games. And for those of you who don't know, log line was a term usually used in film, or I guess in any type of entertainment, where it's one sentence of what you are working on, like what your project is. So it's usually one or two sentences. The shorter, the better. But like 8 assassins are hired to go after Batman. He's got to defeat them in one night. You know, like that to me is really cool. I mean, you could also, like, the whole Batman is locked in the asylum with the inmates are loose. Cool too, but I like the whole 8 assassins thing. The only thing that drove me nuts in Arkham Origins was that not all the assassins were part of the main quest. Some were side missions. To me, that was really terrible, because I didn't even run into Lady Shiva my first time. I'm like, who the fuck is she? So I was thinking, like, because I think it's, what is it? There's Deadshot, Lady Shiva, and Croc are not part of the main game. I guess technically Croc is, but Croc's more of a training boss. So that's what I was a little disappointed with. And the fact, spoiler for Arkham Origins, if you don't know it already, the Joker is the main villain the whole time when it really should have been Black Mask. I wouldn't mind if you had the Joker start to come into Gotham, and that's how you learned a little bit more of him and Batman's relationship. But they should have had a different villain. And I think going forward with Arkham games, the Joker should be really dialed back, in my opinion. Give another villain the limelight. I personally would like to see more Two-Face in it, because I feel Two-Face kind of gets the shaft as more like a side mission, or like Catwoman's person. Like, maybe even have his story, his origin story in there, because that would be cool. Bane I really like, Bane was actually he was the shining point in Arkham Origins, but I think it'd be cool to see kind of, also the good guys, like have a sidekick in this one, have Robin either show how Nightwing became Nightwing or what happened. Maybe you can do that where you have what happens to Jason Todd before Arkham Origin or Arkham Knight, and you could have that whole little plot line going on. I like what they did in Arkham Knight. I'm getting all these confused now. With having the Scarecrow as the main boss. It was nice and refreshing. So, maybe the Night of Owls would be cool. The Court of Owls would be really cool to have as like a main villain. Who else would be really cool? Anarchy. I want to see more of him. He was great. Oh, there's just so many villains. I guess you could use the... Can we make a request, though? Can the Riddler trophies or challenges... The trophies, yeah, the ones you collect. Can we not have 3,400,806 of them, please? Because it was just so much. Have 100. Have 50. That works perfectly fine. Have 50 and make them challenging. A little more challenging than 325 billion. Because at one point I was just like, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore. Because I still haven't finished Arkham Knight's Riddler quest, even though I really want to, but I just don't have the time and the patience to go looking for those. Oh, Man-Bat. I know I'm in the minority of this, but Man-Bat and Arkham Knight, I liked flying around looking for them. I think they could do a little bit more with gameplay where you have to fly after them in like a glider or something like that. And you have to like use your Arkham or augmented reality challenges, like how they could help you. Oh, there's just so many places you can go with a game, in my opinion. But I think that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you for listening to this podcast here. I'm sorry for my hiatus. I'll try not to. I can't promise that. I've been promising that for a year. But it's fun to be back. I hope to do more stuff like this, more projects more often. And, guys, any questions, hit me up on the Ginger Binger Twitter page. Link will be in the description and all that. I'm currently redesigning my website, so that'll be down for the time being. Until then, keep on binging.